Good afternoon. Welcome to another Facebook Live session of Speaking to Your Daughter with me, Ishita. Now, all of us want to be better human beings. The market today is loaded with self-help books which claim to heal your life and make it better. However, do you know that simply going back to the basics of our Indian traditions can improve your personality and make you a winner at life? To talk more about this, we have Sunanda Leelaramji live with us today. Sunanda ji is the daughter, disciple of the internationally eminent philosopher Swami Parthasarathi. For 4 decades, Sunanda ji has been studying and researching Vedanta, the ancient philosophy of India that helps attain perfection in a human being. She has by now acquired a powerful spiritual status. Dedicating her life to the cause of human development, Sunandaji has been guiding leading organizations and universities on the practical application of Vedanta for over 20 years. She has written several research papers on the subject, which has been printed in journals of international repute. As a lecturer, her presentation of ancient wisdom in contemporary thought has enthralled audience across the world and received widespread coverage in television, radio, and print media. Welcome to Speaking Tree Live, Sunandaji. It's a pleasure to have you. Ma'am, let's really start by, decoding what are the tenets of Vedanta? What are the real philosophy on which life is based?
Vedanta is the science of life and living. It gives you the complete picture of who you are as a human being, and it also explains how one should relate to the world in such a way that you find both success in the world and happiness and peace.
Yes.
And above all, it takes you all the way to find the truth of life, which is the knowledge of your essential being.
Right. And before we move further, this is a live session, so please write in your questions. Please write in the comment section, and we'll try and take them. Ma'am, I was just reading a little bit about yourself, and I'm just curious that we tend to turn to outside help when it comes to making yourself better. Books and journals, listening to people on TV. How can Vedanta really help us in becoming a better version of ourselves, helping us become better human beings?
So, as I mentioned, that Vedanta gives you complete knowledge of your own being. So the first thing we have to learn is every human being is constituted of three aspects. One is your outer personality, which is just the physical
body, yeah.
But that's not the real you. There's something within you. And what is your inner personality? The two faculties. One is manas, or the mind, and the other is the intellect, or buddhi.
Right.
So manas and buddhi. Now, what happens with most humans is we take a lot of interest in our physical well-being. Not all, but many people are inclined for physical fitness. But nobody talks about mental fitness.
Of course.
And there is no subject in the world that talks about how to be strong within yourself. I don't mean a person who's arrogant or overconfident and is not really relating to the world correctly, but a person who understands one's own strengths and weaknesses, and you use your inner personality, that's the mind and intellect, to evolve, to develop yourself and become mentally fit. If I were to put it in a nutshell, the mind in any human being is like a child. When we say that, even in a full-grown, mature adult, there's something in you which behaves like a child. That's the mind. Mind is nothing but feelings, emotions, your likes and dislikes, your wishes, your wants, your desires, your demands. All that put together is anybody's mind. Now, subtler than the mind, superior to the mind, only a human has this ability to think, which we call the buddhi. No other creature has it. No animal has it, of course, no plant. It's only a human being who is given this ability to think. But what happens is we learn in a school or university, we develop what is called intelligence. but that doesn't assure the use of the intellect. Now, where Vedanta comes in, it helps one develop the intellect. In other words, it might seem paradoxical. You could be very intelligent, but not able to use your own intellect.
Right.
Now, when you learn to use your intellect, develop it, strengthen it, then it is able to control both the mind and the body, and you have a complete personality.
Ma'am, of course, you've mentioned that you need to develop your intellect. For a layman, what really are the starting points? How should really one go about it? And of course, it's a continuous process and something that never stops. We all talk about that learning should never stop. But how do you really go down that path? How do you start? A lot of people are confused as to what should they do to develop their mind.
To the intellect.
The intellect, of course.
Mind is already developed.
Yes, of course.
That's the problem, because you have a lot of desires, demands. You don't know how to hold it.
Yeah.
So I did not mention, I'm sorry, I didn't complete it. The mind is like a child, but the intellect is like the adult.
It's like the adult. Yeah.
So if the adult in you is asleep, the child takes over your personality. Now, how do you develop this intellect, the adult in you? Two aspects you've got to remember. One is, never take anything for granted. Never accept anything for granted. You must learn to question everything.
Right.
When a child asks questions, many parents don't even know the answers. But you've got to be patient and answer every question. In fact, it should start at the age of 8.
Yeah.
That's when the children ask questions.
Yeah.
And they should be encouraged. And the more you use this ability to think and not take anything for granted, you are in a better position to develop the intellect. So here you're using your intellect, but with higher values of life. One is you question everything, don't take anything for granted, and at the same time, you supplement it with knowledge of truths, of higher values of life. And that is contained in the philosophy of Vedanta. In fact, it's in any book.
Right.
It's not necessarily in one aspect of our country, but you have this knowledge spread out everywhere. It's there in all scriptures. It's there in Western philosophers, everywhere in the world.
Right.
But you have to learn to find these truths. It's all spread out in this philosophy of Vedanta.
Right.
So you've got to help yourself.
Right. And of course, please write any of the questions in the comment section and we'll try and take them. Ma'am, you of course spoke about children, and they of course are the future of tomorrow. They are the foundation on which we build our tomorrow. These days there's so much of peer pressure, there's so much of competition. So how should really one start molding the child in a way, because they have to go to school, they have to give exams, there will be competition, there will be others. Molding the child, because as a parent, there is nothing called good or bad. Everyone wants good for their children, but how do you really start molding the child? At what age, and how should you do it?
See, a child needs to be given this opportunity to find its own, what we call swadharma. Swadharma means one's own nature.
Right.
Oftentimes you find elder or parent with good intention wants the young person to be somebody, something, which may not be that person.
Yeah.
So the first thing everybody ought to do is to find one's own swadharma or one's own nature. So that is very special for you. Now, once you find your swadharma, then you need to find the field of knowledge or field of activity which suits your swadharma. For example, if you're inclined for medicine, then choose the field of medicine. But if you're not inclined, just because you get a seat or you know somebody who can take you into that field will not help the child blossom. So we must respect individual natures and give every child the opportunity to find his own nature, her own nature, and then choose a field of knowledge and according to one's swadharma. Now, once you find your swadharma, what is important is not to be led away by the whims and fancies of your own mind.
Right.
Because even if you choose a field, for example, a person chooses the field of medicine, it does very well, and then falls a prey to one's own mind. I like to do this, I don't like to do this. Then you will not be successful. So one is to find your field of interest, which is your Swadharma, and follow that call, gain knowledge, find a field of activity, and once you do that, you must ensure that you perform according to your duties and obligations in that field, not just your likes and dislikes.
But of course, corporations are often faced with this dilemma of being, at the same time, they sometimes have to take the tough decisions. They have to ask someone to leave, or there's an employee who's not performing. They have to pull them up. So, in terms of corporations, how do they really maintain their ethical value, but at the same time, they want to be successful. They want to be a good company who delivers a great product. So, how can corporations really maintain their ethical values and work towards building a sustainable future, not just for the employee, but for the entire product as such?
In any organization, for that matter, anything that we take up, it could be an organization, it could be an institution of learning, it could be your country, it could be a society, wherever you're functioning, one ought to pitch up an ideal in life.
Right.
What are you working for? You've got to ask yourself, what am I working for? You could be working for yourself, your salary, your name, your fame, your position, or you could be working for the welfare of the unit, you included, of course. So most people could make a mistake there in thinking that you're working for the organization. You might just be concerned about yourself. So that's when you conflict with the goal of the organization. So if you are attuned to the ideal, which is your organization, then you bring in a cooperative endeavor, bring in everybody to follow the same path and work for the welfare of the unit. So for which you got to do it yourself, because oftentimes you feel I'm doing right but somebody else is doing wrong. It doesn't matter, let them settle their issues. If each one is dedicated to the ideal of the organization, it's bound to influence others and you should lead the way. That's the way we work towards the success of the organization.
Yeah, ma'am, that's a very valid point. We've not really, often a lot of people don't do that. They tend to take more interest in what others are doing rather than, so that's a very valid point. Ma'am, going forward, we all strive for perfection. You want to be a perfect parent, you want to be a perfect wife, husband, perfect at work, everything. What I really want to know is that, does the concept of perfection really exist? And if not, then why do we run after it? Is it, how can we as humans take pride in the fact that we're not perfect and it's okay, really?
Now, there is such a thing as perfection. When I say that, in the Bhagavad Gita, the second chapter talks about a very famous portion. It's called Sthita Prajna, which means a person of steady wisdom. But what is described is the perfect state of a human being, whatever that is. It takes you slowly and makes you understand what is perfection. But to put it in a nutshell, as I mentioned earlier, we've got three aspects in us. So at the physical level, we are all performing actions. In fact, action is the insignia of life. From morning till night, from birth to death, everyone is performing actions. But the question is, what sort of actions are you performing? So you could be performing actions based on selfish, self-centered desires, or you could perform actions prompted by unselfish desires, like we talked about. I should work for my organization, not just for myself. So that is being unselfish. But you may not care for other organizations. So you have a limitation. You're not able to go beyond that immediate interest. So perfection would be moving out of where you are and working for larger and larger interests. So you're moving from being selfish, self-centered, to unselfish, and perfection is being selfless. If you think that is difficult, look at nature. A rose gives fragrance. Why does it give fragrance? It has no selfish motive. It doesn't say, oh, here comes the lady of the house, let me release some fragrance. Or there comes the gardener, I'm not interested.
Right.
No. A rose gives fragrance because that is what it must do, or it will die. If every human had the same attitude, like every aspect of nature, the sun rises every morning, sets every evening. What desire does it have? What selfishness does it have? It just does what it ought to do. Do we turn around and thank it? We just take it for granted. So every aspect of nature works in a selfless manner. That's something every human can achieve. When you do that, you've achieved perfection at the physical level. At the mental level, we all have love. Yes, we experience this beautiful emotion called love. But oftentimes, love turns selfish. You do love another person, but for reasons. It is conditional love. I love you because you're nice to me. I love you because you give me gifts. You praise me. You make me feel good. If you don't make me feel good, I stop loving you. So when love is unselfish, it is very noble. It gives a lot of peace for yourself and it helps the other person. So again, to move from self-centeredness in that feeling of love to being unselfish, to being selfless. That is pure love, universal love. It might sound theoretical, but you don't get perfection overnight. If somebody wants six-pack, you don't walk into a gym and walk out with a six. You got to work and work and work. Then you can get it. Similarly with these aspects, whether it's your actions becoming selfless, your feelings becoming universal, and the highest is your thinking. How do you think? What sort of intellect do you have? Now, when you are able to understand, appreciate higher values of life, not only are you perfect in the sense of you will be able to fulfill your duties and obligations and also find success and peace, you pass it on to others. So at all three levels, when you develop yourself, you've got a perfect human.
Ma'am, the Bhagavad Gita, of course, we all know talks about karma and, karma and dharma. So, but, a lot of people in today's, age where people want to run each other over and, things like that. How do we instill on ourselves to believe in karma? That, if someone has done wrong to us, or for that matter, that we don't have to do anything, karma will take its own course. So how do we instill that in ourselves as human beings?
See, karma is a high sounding word. It simply means action. That's all it means. Now, of course, there's a lot into it. There's a whole chapter in the Bhagavad Gita that explains what is karma. But to put it simply, every human, as I said, is acting. From birth to death, from morning till night, everybody is performing actions. Now, while you have the freedom to do whatever you want to do, nobody can stop you ultimately. You want to do something, who can stop you? Every human is acting. But what you must understand, what every one of us must understand, you have the freedom to do whatever you want, but there is such a thing as consequence. When you perform an action, it will create a consequence. And how do we say this? There is a law. The law is simple. Every cause has an effect. Every effect has a cause. So this is a simple law which explains what karma is. So while you have the freedom to do whatever you want, you do not have the freedom when it comes to consequence. You do something. Then later on, you look up to the heavens and say, oh God, why did this happen to me? You are facing the consequence of your own actions. You may not even remember what you did. You may not remember how you felt or what you said. But there is a perfect accounting system. So when you come to knowing the consequence, you may not like it. And that's why you need to understand what is this law of karma and respect it if you want to find something peaceful in your life. So it's your choice. You've got to respect this cause and effect. Now, in other words, to put it very simply, everyone gets what he or she desires. I'm sorry, deserves, not what he or she desires. I'll repeat. Each one gets what one deserves, not what one desires. This is a law. I can't change it. You can't change it. You've got to learn it. You've got to respect it. Follow it.
Right.
You've got a life.
Right. Of course, ma'am, we don't have a lot of time left. Can you, for us, tell us about some life lessons that you personally believe in from the Bhagavad Gita that people can incorporate in their daily lives? Simple life lessons that probably you as a person believe in.
I wouldn't use the word believe because we're talking about truths here. See, the Bhagavad Gita is an outstanding text because it gives us the laws of life. We don't believe in the law of gravitation.
Right.
There is a law of gravitation, and you can find out for yourself the truth of that statement. So the Bhagavad Gita only expounds these truths. Now, each one will do well if you understand. As a human being, we're not animals, we're not plants, we're human beings. As human beings, every single human has a choice.
Right.
That is, you can be born in the best of circumstances and ruin your life. You can be born in the worst of circumstances and come out with a beautiful life. The choice is yours. Now, no animal can do that. No plant can do that. So, if only we realize that life is a great opportunity for each one of us to first of all become better humans. We're not asking what is your caste or creed or religion or race. You can be an American or a Japanese or an African or an Indian. It doesn't matter. You're a human, first and last.
Right.
What sort of a human are you? If you use this knowledge of Vedanta to become a better human, imagine every human thinking in this way. We're talking about a peaceful world. We're talking about a great world. And we spread this around us.
Right.
You will find peace will overtake all the other related problems of the world.
Yeah. Of course, we're completely out of time, ma'am. Just one last, if you can just tell us, some parting words. If there's something you want to tell the audience that this is something that to sum up the session. If there's something you want to tell, please go ahead.
Humans as we are, like we said, we have three aspects to our personality. Let us try from now on to convert ordinary actions that are concentrated upon oneself. Let's try and expand that. I do understand that everyone would care for one's own family. There's nothing wrong with that. Nor does Gita say anything's wrong with that. But let your family be the center, not the boundary of your interest. It starts with your family and your friends or whoever you care for now. But let's not stop with that. Let's go beyond. Let's care for others. Let's care for this planet. Let's care for all beings living on this planet. So that attitude of unselfishness will help one find peace in life. And when your mind is peaceful, you might say, look, I'm not interested in this. But when your mind is peaceful, whatever ability you have to think becomes sharp. And when your intellect is sharp, you can focus, you can concentrate. And when you focus and concentrate on your activities, you gain success. So again, to put it together, with this knowledge, with basic understanding of life and living that we've been talking about, you can find two things in one breath. You can be successful in this world and at the same time be happy.
So you can be both. Actually,
you should
be both.
Why miss out on anything?
I think that
makes your life complete.
That's a wonderful way to end this. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was lovely having you, and thank you for those who are watching. That's all we have for today. We will be back soon with another Facebook live session. For your daily dose of spirituality, please keep logging to Speaking to Dr.